Hello, 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 folks. This is Bob Safale, and I'm very, very happy you're attending this briefing tonight. This is a webinar all about the cryptocurrency world. But before I get started, I do want to make sure you can hear me clearly. So please click on the little hand on the upper right-hand corner so I can see the little hand. You click it, and it lets me know that you can hear me. Is everybody, you just click it on. I need some more people to click on their little hand. Make sure you can hear me. Good. Okay, I see some more hands clicking on. Fantastic. Alrighty. So let me make sure everything is turned on properly, and away we go. Very good. Well, once again, I want to thank everybody for being here. Just a reminder on the purpose of this particular webinar. It's really to provide you breaking news and tech trends, kind of technically what's going on in this crazy crypto world. So that's a big part of why we're here, just because things are changing so much. I mean, they're really changing. In the last week, the news that's happening is surprising. Now, the first one is kind of, I've been trying to give everybody an idea of the level of acceptance of crypto. And this first news flash came over, and that's just come out today. Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon calls crypto revolutionary and plans entry into market. Now, I don't think I have to tell everybody that Steve Bannon did have a fairly significant relationship with the current president. And still really does. And he also has a very significant political connections because of Breitbart and many other factors that I don't have to tell you about. And he has been a significant proponent of cryptocurrency. In fact, he actually made a whole lot of money in the crypto world purchasing Bitcoin. So he now is looking at different, and by the way, this report just came out for the New York Times today of Bannon's efforts into not only cryptocurrency in general, but also into initial coin offerings. So, once again, this whole area, there's the cryptocurrency world, and then there's initial coin offerings, and that's a significant area because we believe that initial coin offerings, whether they're coins or tokens or whatever, ultimately could be in the future the biggest area of how to raise capital for small businesses. You have crowdfunding, which you've all maybe heard of, or hopefully you have. That's one way you can raise money now. Outside, because the old ways before, of course, crowdfunding, and now before ICOs, I mean the ways you raise money were fairly limited. I mean, you could raise money from your friends and family, but then to get larger, if you still needed more capital, you'd have to do, you have to file for larger fundraising where you could only get money from what are called accredited investors. These are people that have assets in excess of $1 million. Maybe they're not counting their primary home, or maybe they do. I forget the numbers. It's been a little while, but maybe I think you made over $200,000 individually a year and $300,000 as a couple, you would also be considered an accredited investor. But before the crowdfunding world, before the ICO world, the way you raised capital was friends and family. Then you did some type of limited fundraising where you could only get money from accredited investors. And then after that, then, you had to maybe get money from banks, which is, almost impossible unless you're making a ridiculous fortune. And then maybe you go and get large private investments from funds, and then you do a public offering. So that was the old way. Well, now you could do crowdfunding where individuals who are not accredited investors as many as you want can invest in you by, investing small amounts of money, $100, $1,000, $500, and you can raise money that way. And now we believe that the next major potential use for the crypto world is through initial coin offerings that are registered properly. You register them, you get registered. And an ICO is a bit of a misnomer, and the name is a bit of a misnomer because it doesn't have to be a coin offering. It could be what's called a token offering, where maybe you're pre-purchasing energy in the future. You're pre-purchasing electricity, or you're pre-purchasing goods, or whatever it is. That could be considered a initial coin offering. It just depends. There's a lot to it. So the fact that you now have Steve Bannon, in fact, he held private meetings with a bunch of crypto investors and big hedge fund managers, and he's really focusing on this area, which means that ultimately this can make the environment politically much more favorable to cryptocurrencies, and that's good for everybody. So I think that was fairly important news regarding what Steve Bannon is doing. It's a good indicator for all of us. The next thing that came out that was very interesting, and I did talk about this a couple, 3 weeks ago. I said that Coinbase, which is one of the largest exchanges out there, as you all know, was getting involved with funds. They're going to raise, funds for investment into the crypto world. And Coinbase opened their fund by taking investments between $250,000 and $20 million. So the low amount to invest in their fund is $250,000. That's the low amount. And as high as $20 million. That is very, very, very significant, folks. Very, very significant. So it just shows you that people that are high net worth individuals are definitely buying in to this crypto world. That's what that means. And I talked about this a little last week. When you have very, very wealthy people who can drop $20 million or $5 million or $10 million on essentially a bet on a company or a currency, that means they have a lot more money on top of that. And many of these folks protect their own financial interests, company interests, through funding politicians. They put money in political action committees. They put money into specific politicians. They put money into political parties. So they have, obviously, when they're putting tens of millions of dollars into the political world, they have some juice, right? So we all kind of want to see more and more and more and more of these big wealthy players putting serious money, serious skin in the game in the crypto world. So and certainly when you're talking about a minimum investment into the Coinbase, what's called an index fund, when you're talking about them putting that much money, I mean, $250,000 is like a tip money to these folks. So that's kind of like that's like loose change to some of these wealthy investors, right? So that's pretty nice. And this fund, this index fund, includes Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, as well as Ethereum. Okay, And once again, as you see more and more money pouring in to funds, to various companies investing, it will flow into the purchasing of currencies ultimately, which will adjust and enhance the overall price of currencies. So that's the second big piece of news. The third piece of news that I think is very important is a decision made by the German government. All right, it's a decision made. Now, when you talk about the world's biggest economies, of course, you know, the United States is number one, and I think it's close to 22 trillion gross domestic product, GDP. I believe, of course, China is number two, and I think it's somewhere in the 12 trillion range, you know, somewhere. It depends on, there's a lot of, there's a lot of complexity trying to figure out what the heck is the real gross domestic product of China. But suffice to say, they're number two. Then number three is Japan. Number four is Germany. So Germany has come out and decided, the government, that cryptocurrency does not threaten financial stability. Well, that's a pretty good announcement. So cryptocurrencies do not pose a threat to financial stability, according to the German federal government. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that the German government doesn't, see that there's at least some type of need for regulatory measures to control certain, currency activity. But as I continue to say, as long as it's not, overzealous regulatory measures, it's not. And listen, it's not a great thing that you have to bring in regulation like this. It's not a terrific thing. I wish it was not, needed. But on the other hand, one of the reasons, I want to keep on describing this to you, because the more you understand the money flows, the more you can see that news that's going to affect you if you have acquired certain currencies like Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or whatever. The importance of having at least some regulations is because huge investment funds, pension funds, hedge funds, all of these huge funds that hold not millions, not hundreds of millions, but billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions. These funds have very strict guidelines on how they invest. They promise the people that pour money into their funds, like, teachers' pension funds, workers' funds, they promise that they're going to be very careful in how they invest their money. And one of the ways they can, at least to some degree, prove they're being careful is they tell their investors, listen, we're not going to put your money in risky investments. We're not going to put your money into unregulated areas. So, yeah, we don't like to hear about regulations. We certainly don't want to hear about aggressive regulations that make it impossible to do business. But understand that many of these funds that are going to push billions of dollars into the cryptocurrency world, they will not be allowed to unless there are certain regulatory frameworks in place. Okay? So that's the news there. The next piece of significant news, and I did talk about this last week in part because our own, one of the companies we're supporting quite a bit, CloudCoin, is right now in development of providing CloudCoin as what's called an in-game currency into video games. There are many, many, many video games where the players can, if they call level up, but there are many video games where you start with certain capabilities or abilities, and you either can increase your abilities through gameplay, or you can kind of speed up your growth by literally paying. And I'm being very simple here. You can pay effectively to level up. You can there are video games where you can buy certain specific features. You can add strength, or you could add endurance, or you could add the ability to heal yourself quicker. But they do that through in-game currencies, many of them. Well, the thing is with at least with Cloudcoin and with more and other currencies that involve, say, blockchain, they want you to be able to purchase these currencies outside the game and use them inside the game. Does that make sense? All right. So they want you to be able to use them outside and inside, which is pretty interesting. Okay. And there are other applications for earning currency through playing the games. Okay. But in all these cases, whoever's playing the games who want to use a cryptocurrency, they got to be able to access the cryptocurrency. They got to be able to access the in-game currency easily. And if some of you ever tried to buy some currencies, man, is it tough. Okay? So that's where a simple solution is best. So there's a big fight on now on the different ways and different technologies that are going to make their way into providing in-game currencies or cryptocurrencies inside of video games. So once again, here's more news on this. That was one of the big areas that I said you should watch out for change in the future. Okay. All right. So that's our news update, what we've seen happening in the last, actually just in the last 3 days. You see how fast things are changing in the crypto world? It's just moving. So you really have to stay on top of it. And hopefully I'm going to be able to make it easier for you guys to stay on top of it by giving you the, most relevant news each week of, the hundreds and hundreds of stories that are out there. I'm going to try to pluck for you 3 to 4 different stories that makes a difference. Now, tonight's topic. What's tonight's topic? I am going to start addressing the things that you directly should do if you haven't done them already, or things that you maybe have started to do and maybe you want to get better at it. And I'm going to start, and so this is the kind of the things you should do series of talks over the next few weeks. And I'm going to focus initially on, well, how should you, what should you do first? And the first thing I believe you should do is you should know how you're going to enter into purchasing cryptocurrencies for investment purposes, if that's what you're trying to do, or for usage, or whatever your bag is. I'm going to kind of focus on what I did. So I'm going to tell you about what I did, and maybe that will give you some ideas on what you could do. So I'm going to just tell you my story, and then this may be translatable to you or not. Okay, so once again, I'm not giving investment advice here. I'm telling you my story, and if my story seems to make sense, you should do additional investigation on your own to find out how maybe some of the things I'm going to talk about could apply to you. So the first thing that I did is I picked out what's an amount of money that I was going to use to purchase Bitcoin or purchase Ethereum or purchase Litecoin, whatever. The first thing I had to do was decide what was the amount of money that I could lose easily. Like, not lose any sleep on. What was the amount that I could just kick into something and it does great? Hey, fantastic. And if it didn't do great, or hell, it blew up completely, I wouldn't miss a beat. And everybody's different, and you just have to pick, well, what is that amount? What's the amount of money that I can just lose? Yeah, is it $1,000? Is it $500? Is it $5,000? I mean, there are people where $30,000, nothing. Okay, or at least it's not going to kill them if they it's a great bet if whatever coin they're purchasing, goes up 10 times. Wow, that's great. But everybody's different. But you should think about, well, what's that amount? What's the amount that you can comfortably lose easily? The whole thing. That's first. That's step number one. The second decision you need to make, and this will then determine what type of currencies you buy into, is what is my time strategy on this? Am I a short-term investor, meaning I buy today and maybe I want to get out in 30 days? Or 50 days? Or 10 days? I consider anything from now out to 90 days to 180 days. I consider that short term. I mean, a lot of people say, well, no, short term really is inside of 30 days, but whatever. So you have to decide, are you a short term person? Are you a medium termer, which is, 6 months to a year? Like, okay, I'm going to bet on something that, it's going to, and that's what I had to do. Or is it something that's long term? That I'm going, and listen, I don't care if nothing happens for 2 years. Don't care. Doesn't matter to me. That's a long-term investor. And each type of investor has to look at the coins out there in a completely different manner. If you're a short-term investor, you have to put your money in coins that have a lot of trading volume. Okay? Okay, I'm going to show you some of those. Well, obviously, Bitcoin, lots of trading volume. Okay? Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash. These have a lot of trading volume, and they have big market caps, meaning the total value of all their coins. Like Bitcoin, the total value of all their coins out there is $114 billion. Now, why do I say a lot of trading volume, a lot of size? Because if you're a short-term investor, you want to be able to move all or part of your investment very, very rapidly, very quickly. You don't want to, if you decide, okay, I bought X amount, I want to get out now, you don't want to have to take 3 weeks to do it. You don't want to have to take a week to do it. You want to be able to get out. And a short-term investor, whether he's getting out in a week, 30 days, 50 days, 60, when you do decide to you pull the trigger, you got to get out. Boom. And you have to be enough volume. Okay? And if you're a short-term investor, whatever coin you're getting involved with, it's got to be on enough exchanges so you can, get on the exchange and do your business and get out. So you got to pick coins that are on exchanges that you can get your money out of. It's not good enough to be on an exchange where you sell all your coins and your money's sitting in the exchange if you can't get the money out of the exchange, meaning out of the exchange into your bank account. So if you're a short-term investor, short-term player, you want to have a coin that's got lots of volume, or at least this is what my viewpoint is. That's what I looked at. I said, okay, here's how much money I want in short term. How do we get it out? Well, coin's got to have a lot of volume. It's got to be trading on exchanges where I can sell it quick and I can get the money out of the exchange. So that's how you make your decision as a short-term player about which coins you're getting involved with. If you're a medium term, now listen, now you can play in currencies that are still trading on the exchanges, but maybe are farther down the line. Okay, maybe they're between the top 20 currencies, down to 100. These are currencies that are trading less and that are trading on far fewer exchanges. But if you're a medium-term investor, that means, once again, you can only buy. I only buy whatever I can just throw out if I just dumped it out the street, doesn't bother me a bit. So that's on medium term. You could be a little bit more speculative. You can buy into currencies that aren't necessarily trading on exchanges now. Maybe they're on exchange, maybe they're on 1 or 2 or 3 exchanges. Okay, all right. Because what you're betting on with a medium is that this coin is going to be doing better or really well in 6 months to 12 months. You're not expecting one thin dime next week, next month, 3 months from now. You're not expecting nothing. That's a medium investor. Medium. Long term, you have to have tons of patience. And you better not violate my first rule, which is only put money in that you could just say bye-bye to. If you're a long-term investor, what you're doing there, at least what I'm doing is I'm betting on stuff where I buy at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 cents or 10 cents, that because I like what problem the currency is solving, I think, wow, this sucker is going to, in a couple years, this thing could be not trading at 10 cents or 15 or 20. It could be trading at $20. And if I bought in at 3 to 10 cents, oh my gosh. Oh, even if it went up to $10, even if it went up to $5 in 2 years. Let's see. Let's just do the math real quick. If you picked up a coin at 10 cents and it's trading at $2 in 2 years, you do realize that your investment went up by 20 times. 20 times. Name me the stock that's gone up 20 times. And it ain't Apple in the last 2 years. Apple's gone up a lot, but it ain't gone up 20 times. But once again, the long-term player knows for every one hit that went well, they miss 10 times. You see? So if you're going to play the long game, you got to really take a look at what you're getting into. And maybe you're going to look at something that could go from 5 cents to $5. That's 100 times. So you only need one hit at 100 times for every 20 misses. But in those cases, these are coins that aren't trading on nothing. Okay? They're not, because if they're trading on something, some exchange, there's going to be more liquidity, there's going to be more buying and selling, and the price is going to be moving up. I mean, you're just not going to be able to jump into too much that's trading. Generally, that's trading at, not at least 20 to 50 or a buck. That's what's going to be trading on an exchange. So long-term plays, you must not even think that you're gonna drop this out of your system and get the money back in like 6 months, a year. It's just, if you're doing that, you shouldn't have got in. You should have been a medium player, buying a top 50 coin that's maybe trading on a couple, 2, 3 exchanges, and it's got some volume. But where you can really make the huge super home runs generally is in these currencies that solve a problem, that are yet to trade on an exchange, that have small volume, but you know underneath, you have to take a look at what those companies are doing. And that brings me into, let me move into the next thing, which is once you've decided whether you're short, medium, long, you then have to decide, well, how much profit do I want to make before I start pulling some of my money? So let's say you decide, okay, I'm putting 5,000 in. And my decision is I'm going to double my money. Okay, now if you double your money, go from 5 to 10,000, you have to decide, when am I going to pull money out? Okay, you have to decide, okay, when I hit 7,500, I'm going to pull my profit out. So I'm going to pull that 2,500 bucks out, and I'm still going to have 5,000 in. And then you have to decide, okay, now what's your next target? So when I hit, okay, I've pulled 2,500 out, I'm back down to 5,000 bucks. Let it move up and decide, well, when it gets up to X, when are you going to pull again? But make the decision and stick to it. Okay? So that's important. Okay? Now, let's get to the all-important, how do I pick the right coin? I'm going to give you some ideas. Okay? So the first thing I do is I find out, okay, I find out generally who's involved with this currency. Now I'm using Zcash as an example. Now what does Zcash do? Well, what Zcash does is it's a privacy currency. Okay? Basically, it allows you to have what's called selective transparency. You can be either fully transparent or partially transparent when you buy, when you buy using Zcash or you sell using Zcash. So with Zcash payments, they are published on a public blockchain, but the sender and the recipient and the amount of transactions private. So with Zcash, when purchases are made using it, it can be done in such a way that the buyer and the seller, people don't know, and how much they spent, people can't access. So that's what Zcash is. It's called a privacy currency, and there's a lot of people who want it. So the first thing you should do in picking a coin is you need to, A, take a look at the team. Who's running the joint? Now with Zcash, you have, it's pretty funny names. You got Zuko Wilcox, that's the guy running the deal. And then you have a number of scientists that are involved with it. You got Eli Ben-Sasson and Alessandro Chiesi. I'm probably butchering their names. But you want to learn who the team is. You want to find out, who are these folks? Where do they come from? Why are they so smart? Are they going to make the right decisions? Okay? So that's kind of, actually, when I look at a currency, the first thing I kind of want to do is to find out, who the heck's involved with this deal, okay? So that's the first step. Because when I then look at what the currency does, what it solves, I can feel reasonably confident that it's true, okay? So how do you find out if it's true? What do they solve? Well, first thing you do is find out who the team is. Do due diligence on the team. And most sites like Zcash, they'll tell you who the team is. Then you go to what's called the white paper. And there are different names for this, but most call them white papers. Well, what's a white paper? It's basically telling you what the thing does. What's the problem or need or desire that this token or currency is resolving? What's it do? And you're going to find that out by reading the white paper. You need to do that. You need to find out, what does this thing do? Okay? That's very, very important, because that's going to help you decide whether, is this a short-term play, is it a medium play, or is it a long-term play? Because you may see, well, it's going to do this in this marketplace that really isn't rolling yet, but maybe in 5 years it's going to roll. Maybe it's a currency that's going to make it possible for people who make virtually nothing to be able to get access to the currency, the unbanked people. Remember, I told you there's only a couple billion people on planet Earth that have no possible access to a bank or credit card. Those are called unbanked. And maybe there's a currency that's going to help people in, India who are unbanked be able to buy stuff. And maybe their white paper is addressing a problem that is not solved now, but will be solved in 2 years. Well, that's a long-term play, isn't it? Because by the time they solve the issue, it's 2 years. And that's when their coin or their token should really ride high, okay? Could ride high earlier, who knows? So you want to find out what's it do, okay? Then, okay, you want to kind of go back, 5,000 feet overview and find out, do they easily describe the problem and the solution? Because the white paper, you're going to get into the weeds. You're going to get into the weeds, okay? So you want to be able to draw back up and find out if they can concisely and easily and understandably describe what their currency or token is going to do. Because that story has to be communicated. It's got to be communicated through the media. It's got to be communicated through the internet. It's got to be communicated easily, quickly, understandably. Because if those happen, the coin's going to move. People will be able to buy it. If they can't explain what the heck they're doing, and you'll know quick, if you can't find what's called an overview or a summary or an about us that explains, basically cooks down this white paper. The white paper is going to be, dozen pages. It can be 30 pages. Nobody's going to sit and read a white paper. Well, not nobody. You guys are, but most people aren't going to do that. But you guys are going to do it because you're smart. But then for the 90% of the folks or 95% of the folks that, they don't know a white paper from toilet paper, you've got to have an easily understandable, communicatable communication of the solution and the problem, and the solution, problem solution. So if they have all that good stuff, okay, then you move to the last step. If this is a near-term currency or near-term investment or a medium investment, then you're going to go to coin ranking, You're going to find the currency and you're going to find out, well, how they doing? How they doing lately? Okay? So that's what you're going to do. That's going to help you make your final decision. Okay? Like here's EOS. Okay? What's been going on for last 7 days? Not that great. Let's look at 30 days. Flat. Let's look at a year. Well, flat for a long time, then kind of got up to about 14 bucks. But looks like they're fairly stable now. Let's take a look what they're at. They're 14 bucks. They're stable. But if you take a look at looking 1 year back, they were just at 60 cents, 70 cents back in November. Okay? So take a look at this. And they didn't go all that crazy high during December. This is what's interesting about this one. They didn't go shooting up like Bitcoin did, way high, crazy high. They went up to $16 and now, okay, they're about 14. Okay, 9. They haven't jumped around too much. So this maybe is a medium play. 6 months to a year play. All right? But at any rate, this is how you evaluate it. You basically go ahead and you do an analysis of how they've been doing. And Coin Ranking is a fantastic site to tell you how they're doing. Okay? So these are the first steps I want you to think about. Okay? To summarize, number one, you got to decide what amount of money can I just throw out the door and never see again and not lose sleep. Number two, you've got to decide whether you're a short-term, medium, or long-term player. Number three, you've got to decide, okay, what's the amount of profit? When I get to a particular amount of profit, I'm going to pull money out. And once I pulled it out, how much am I leaving in, and when do I pull again? Okay. Then you go about deciding what currency matches your overall strategy, and that's done by looking at the team, looking at the problem in detail through the white paper, looking at how easily it is for them to communicate it to the masses, and then look at what's their trading. Okay, so that's what you do, and that's what you do each time. Okay, so I took a little long on this tonight. So next week I'm going to talk about, we've done some testing. I did talk about testing that I've been doing with CloudCoin, and we're testing the use of it in a certain series of using CloudCoin as a incentive for people to buy other things. So we tested it. We tested it on, and some of you got involved. We helped flood a real estate investment group with a bunch of people who are interested in learning about what they're doing. We helped them. We used some CloudCoins to help them really get a ton of business. Okay, it went incredibly well, incredibly well. And we also are about to test this on a product that I've been involved with. That's don't go buy this right now. Don't look at this. Don't go buy it yet. This is a product that I've worked on along with Kevin Harrington. Kevin Harrington is one of the Shark Tank guys, one of the original investors. He's sold like $7 billion worth of stuff, and one of the areas he's incredibly successful at are kitchen appliances, and really, really good appliances, particularly grills. Do not buy this, because I have a huge shipment coming down from the north, and we're about to use CloudCoins as a reward system to sell a bunch of these grills. Because what we're ultimately doing is we're showing some case studies about the use of CloudCoins in commercial applications, and we're going to be showcasing those case studies at the huge Freedom Fest, which is happening in July, mid-July. Okay, so I'll tell you more about that next week. Huge news on that front. Okay, there you go. So let's go ahead and do our drawing, our random drawing. And let's see who's going to win 10,000 CloudCoins. This is going to be fun. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, number 50. We had a streak going where a bunch of people were winning who were like the 150th, 170th person in the crowd. Tonight, it's the 50th person has won 10,000 CloudCoins. So we'll be sending out the notice on that. Look for that. And next week, we will do part 2 of what you have to do to benefit the most with cryptocurrencies. And we're going to kind of focus, if you own a small business, large business, home business, whatever, specific things you can do with cryptocurrencies to really supercharge those businesses. So I hope you attend. Thanks a lot, folks, for attending. I hope you learned a lot.